Hey everybody, it's Dave from Blue Bears Games. I'm going to be doing some special $20 budget decks this week, and first one is going to be Cannibal Cats. We had a pretty successful convention at Geek Fest as far as the budget decks go, so I had to make a couple new ones for the next con, which I'm doing this Friday, this Saturday and Sunday. It is a Toy Fest in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and I had to remake a couple of the decks that were sold. I was not able to make all of them, but I did make three brand new ones for your guys' pleasure, and hopefully they go over well. So the first one I'm gonna give you guys a tour of and a little tips and tricks of is Cannibal Cats. It is a budget version of the cat food deck that's out there that's popular from the Throne of Eldraine release. It really actually is kind of a cool deck. So I'm going to go over it and we'll take a look at it. Alright, so the idea of this deck is to keep recurring creatures from the graveyard. So I went ahead and I found as many of the good ones, or at least somewhat good ones that I could, to go ahead and keep returning them. So we start with Sanitarium Skeleton. It's a 1 to cast, 1/2. So right off the bat, 1 to cast, 1/2 is actually pretty good. But it also, for 3, returns from the graveyard to your hand, so you can recast it. So we take him out of the graveyard, put it in our hand, recur him, block something, maybe sacrifice him for some reason. I wonder what that would be. So we got a play set of those. So the cat food deck basically uses Cauldron Familiar. We're going to use the same theory, but I went a little further with it and added a couple of things in here that also can be sacrificed that, can do something. So, Cauldron Familiar is a 1 to cast 1/1 cat, hence the name Cannibal Cats. I'll explain that in a minute. It says whenever he enters the battlefield, each opponent loses a life and you gain 1 life. And you can sacrifice a food and return Cauldron Familiar from your graveyard to the battlefield. Now, food was made in Throne of Eldraine, so you'll see what I mean by Cannibal Cats in a second. So you sacrifice a food, bring them into play. So another recurring creature. The next one up is Reassembling Skeleton. It's a 2 to cast, 1/1. That for 2, you can return them from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Again, another remove from the graveyard, bring to your hand kind of effect. And that'll be really important. This whole deck relies on that. I put a play set of Grave Diggers in here, so in case for some reason you need to bring something else back, you can. There's a little trick with Grave Diggers when you have multiple copies that I like to use. You basically can have, for 4 mana every turn, infinite blockers. So you cast one, it dies. For some reason, if you have to sacrifice it for something, it goes to the grave. You cast another one, you bring a Grave Digger back to your hand. That Grave Digger in play dies, you bring it back. So it's a recurring theme here, just to bring the Grave Diggers back, or to bring any other creature you have in the graveyard back. So we went with that. Alright, here's where we get the damage through. So this is one of the two things. Sir Kernrad the Grim, 5 to cast, 5/4. So that's actually not bad as far as stats and power and toughness. It's a legend, so make sure I only keep 1 in play. Don't screw yourself on the legendary rule where you have to sacrifice 1. Whenever another creature dies, or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad, I'm having a problem today. Sir Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent, and the other ability is for 2, 1 black and 1 of any. Each player puts the top card of their library into their graveyard. So what we're looking at here is, let's break it down. Alright, whenever another creature dies, so if any of your creatures die, but it could be even your opponents, or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield. So if you use his ability and you flip him from the top of your library and it goes into your grave, that counts. Or if a card leaves your graveyard, which if you didn't notice, we have, Sanitarium Skeletons and Cauldron Familiars and, all the ilk that come out of the graveyard for Reassembling Skeletons. He can do mass amounts of damage every turn just because you're messing with your graveyard the whole time. So he's one of the ways to get damage in. So we got 2 of them in there. Now, that is as far as the non-rares go, the creatures, because you don't really need much more than that. They keep coming back. You have ways to deal with it. So since all of your creatures, for the most part, come back, my suite of creature kill, so that we have a little bit of control in here, starts with Bone Splinters, because who cares if your creatures die? So you sacrifice your 1/1 to kill, just about anything on the other side. I was looking for more of these. I, for some reason, couldn't find a playset, so I only put 2 of them in here. Terrors, just because, it's cheap to cast. They say bury, but it basically just means kill it and it can't be regenerated, and it has to be a non-black, non-artifact. Reeve Soul is to destroy a creature with power 3 or less. Got a playset of those in there. And Bake into a Pie, because the theme here is to make food tokens to return the Cauldron Familiar. So 4 to cast to just destroy a creature and then create a food token. I believe I got 4 of them in there as well. Foreboding Fruit is another one. Target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. Obviously you're going to target yourself unless your opponent's really low on life and this can kill them. And Adamant is a new ability from Throne of Eldraine, which is if at least 3 black mana was spent to cast a spell, create a food token. If you don't know what a food token is, it's just an artifact token that you can pay to sacrifice the artifact and you gain 3 life. We're not going to use them for that unless it's an emergency. But if you have extra food tokens lying around, go for it. It helps keep you alive. Diabolic Tutor is to search for a card, because we have a combo here. It's not infinite per se, but it's quasi-infinite, meaning that if we had a way to untap one of the cards in here, we could infinitely go. So this is to find one of the pieces, and if they create, make, or I find a way to do so, I will add that in later, but at the moment I have not found it. So search your library for a card, put it in your hand, and shuffle your library. Basically, it's a demonic tutor, but twice as much. Alright, here's the other part of the engine. Witch's Oven. It's a 1 to cast artifact that says tap it and sacrifice a creature. Create a food token. If the creature that was sacrificed toughness is 4 or greater, create 2 instead. So, I'm going to show you right now, if you haven't seen it yet, this is the cat food deck combo, which is the Cauldron Familiar, which is when it comes into play, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life, and sacrifice a food, and this is the cat cannibal part. So, you sacrifice a food, you use the Witch's Oven to create a food token, sacrifice this would be the creature, you sacrifice the food token to bring the Cauldron Familiar into play. If there is a way to infinitely untap the Witch's Oven, which I'm going to look for, you can infinitely keep making the cat eat itself and come into play and make all of your opponents lose a life and you gain a life. So that is the cat food combo in the Cannibal Cats deck here. Again, if I can find a way to make the Witch's Oven untap infinitely, I would go ahead and put it in here. I haven't found it yet. I'm still looking. So I've got 2 of those in here. Now, because we're not going to be able to go infinite, we can at least do it a couple times a turn. So I put 2 manifold keys in there. It's to untap the artifact. I don't really think you're going to use the target creature can't be blocked this turn. This is only to untap the Witch's Cauldron. Alright, and the rares, we went with Ayara, first of the Locktwain. She is a 3 black legendary elf noble, and it is a 2/3, that whenever Ayara, the first of Locktwain, or another black creature enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. And you can tap her to sacrifice a black creature to draw a card. That's important. Remember, almost every single creature in this deck has a way to come back, or has a way to make another one come back. So the point of it is to just keep looping around. For as much mana as you have, keep sacrificing one of the skeletons, sacrifice the cats. However you can do it, just to draw cards to get to your combo, or to get to a card that can find your combo. So that's the last piece of the puzzle. Hopefully it works out in your favor. So that is the final piece. So I got 1 of them in there. If I had more, I would have put them in there. The next rare was Sword Point Diplomacy for 3. It's a sorcery. Reveal the top 3 cards of your library. For each of those cards, put that card in your hand unless your opponent pays 3 life, then exile the rest. So in essence, it's draw 3 cards. Your opponent can pay 3 life per card to not let you draw it. In essence, this could be 9 damage for 3. It's not going to be. Usually it won't be, but it can be. It's not. It could be 9 damage for 3 mana. Now, the other part of the little tech that I put in here was a lot of the cat food decks. They're standard, so M19's not in there. But I was looking at this card and I was like, there's a way to break that card, and this deck helps to break it. So Desecrated Tomb is a 3-cast artifact that whenever one or more creature cards leave your graveyard, create a 1/1 black bat creature token with flying. So all those skeletons and the Cauldron Familiar, they come out of the graveyard consistently, and you can sacrifice them to put them back in the grave to bring them back out into play. So every time you can do that, you can create a 1/1 black bat with flying. That helps for blocking. That helps for swarming the board with flyers. If your opponent's playing green, they don't have any flyers, or if they're just for some reason not playing flyers. This is a great card in this deck. It will help you to close out a game if you need to. So I put that in there. And the foil rare that I do for my for every one of my decks is in Garrick's Wake. It's just devastating if the game goes late. You destroy all creatures and planeswalkers you don't control. So that is the final regular card. Now for the lands, it is a mono black deck, so it's mostly swamps. But I put in there a couple other things. First thing I put in here was Mortuary Mine. When it enters the battlefield, you may put target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. In case for some reason you can't get a card to come back. I don't know why you wouldn't, but it does happen. It can help with a couple things, like the what the hell is his name? Sir Conrad. He doesn't come back his own way. So you can put him back on the top of your library in case he's there. So put 2 of those in there just in case purposes. Desert of the Glorified to cycle away if it's late game and you don't need a land to come into play and you're trying to search for pieces of the combo. I put 2 of those in there, and then Evolving Wilds for the faux fetch so that we can go ahead and thin out the deck. We're not an aggro deck here, so Evolving Wilds makes more sense in here than anywhere. It's to get rid of bad draws. So there you have it. That is Cannibal Cats. It is a version of the cat food deck. I'm going to be doing a couple more decks this week for you guys. A couple of them are brand new that I haven't done before, and I'll get to them as soon as possible. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button for you new folks out there. Go take a look at all the old videos I have up for all the budget decks for the Commander stuff. I got a lot of content up there right now. So go ahead, like this video. Any comments or questions, go ahead and do so in the section below. And I'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.